This is A's Cast Live, your comprehensive look at the Athletics.
Leaping at the wall, it's gone! A towering drive into center field by Rooker.
And 29 other MLB clubs.
A judgy blast. All rise. Here comes the judge.
Swung on, hit high, hit deep to right, away back into the second deck.
Bobby Witt Jr. becomes the first shortstop in Major League history to have two 30-30 seasons.
Shohei Ohtani starts the 50-50 club.
Join us as we take you inside the baseball universe, from humidors to walk-off dingers to Hall of Fame talk. We have you covered. Spend your afternoon with us, only on A's Cast Live. Here's Chris Townsend.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of A's Cast Live. We have a phenomenal show for you today because we have the Hall of Fame announcement that's going to be coming. The Hall of Fame inductions in September. It's going to be one of the coolest classes that we have ever had. You talk about three guys and a broadcaster that meant so much to this organization. Are we announcing it? Has it been announced yet?
It's been announced. The Hall of Fame class has been announced. They put out the press release, but they told everyone in the press release about how to watch the interviews that we're going to be doing.
Okay, so today it is going to be Hudson, Mulder, and Zito right here on A's Cast Live, the big three that were one of the greatest threesome in the history of baseball. When you look at the numbers for pitching, they are going to go in together the way it should be. You're going to see these interviews that I did earlier today, Steve Sachs, where you talk about three guys that are just not great pitchers, or just not guys that were part of a threesome, that they challenged each other, that they all pushed each other, but there is a special bond. They're like brothers. Mm-hmm. They're like family. And, you know, Tim Hudson's going to talk about how when he was growing up in the South, that he watched Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz. That meant something to him. And he's going to talk about how he felt like they were a part of something like that. And he's going to mention that he thinks, you know, their three would match up against anybody. And when you look at their careers, you know, Tim Hudson is the big game pitcher. Mark Mulder was everything you wanted as a top pick, a second overall pick in the draft, the big left-hander who was just nasty. Yep. And then Barry Zito would come along after them. They were all pretty close, 1, 2, and 3 together coming up to the big leagues. But Barry Zito would come up, be a Cy Young Award winner. Yep. Very special, what a career he had. And we'll talk a little bit about his music and how we still play his song here, Ballpark Kids, and how all the kids, and he was fired up to hear about that, how we show all the kids at the ballpark. So, and then also Monty Moore. Monty Moore will be with us on a later date, but Monty Moore was the voice of the A's. He came with the A's from Kansas City to Oakland. He broadcast 3 different World Series because back then the home radio guy was a part of the World Series coverage. So it was Kurt Gowdy, Tony Kubek, and also Monty Moore when the games were in Oakland. So he broadcasted 3 straight World Series on NBC. He did stuff for NBC, national games for NBC. Monty Moore, truly one of the greatest broadcasters in the history of baseball, and one of the greatest gentlemen you'll ever meet. So what a Hall of Fame class. The big three and the great Monty Moore. You remember watching the big three.
Absolutely.
All 3 guys were different, and all 3 guys were nasty.
And all 3 guys very much deservingly need to go in. I think one thing that you had hit on, Towny, when you said that really kind of resonates with me, you said the familiarity. You wanted to be able to belong to something and to be attached to something that either goes along with something you experience or something that you believe in. And that's what you got when you see these 3 pitchers, Mulder, Zito, and Hudson. These guys, everybody wanted to be like them. Every kid growing up in the Bay Area wanted to be like these guys because they were so good. They were dominant. And they were just such a big part of this team. And you talk about Monty Moore. I'll tell you, when I was growing up, I got all of my information from the A's through Monty Moore. I remember the times, Kurt Gowdy, Tony Kubek in the World Series.
That.
72, 73, 74. I remember all that. And that was just so special to me. All the times where they tried to get those games in, they put the helicopters on the field to kind of dry out the field. Remember that because all the rain they had, but they got everything in. And Monty Moore, along with those two stalwarts on the national level with Kubek and Tony Kubek and Kurt Gowdy. I mean, it didn't get any better than that. That's what I remember about baseball as a kid. Again, that familiarity goes way back to when I was a kid. It brought it all forward.
Well, Cody wasn't born yet, and I was born in '72. So,
see, my parents were very young then, so that wasn't even a thought in their mind yet.
I've had a lot of people come up to me, Sax, over the years and go, you know, when that, I'm like, man, I wasn't even 1 year old yet when the A's were winning in 1972.
That's a great thing you can get with somebody that's really old like me.
Correct.
Is I get to go back and reflect on these things, and I can do it from experience.
And I want to say this right here, right now, because I was at this graduation, Willow Glen High School graduation, and someone says to me, he goes, you know, I've been watching TV, and you were Steve Sax. Why Sax? Because obviously a lot of people think of you as a Dodger.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people forget, I guess you played for the Yankees, and you played for the White Sox, and you played for the A's.
Played right here.
But what I told him, I said, you got to realize, Steve Sax grew up, not only did he play for a brief time with the A's at the end of your career, you grew up an A's fan.
I did. I grew up an A's fan.
People need to realize you hated the Dodgers growing up.
Hated them. And I say that to everybody. I can tell them the truth. I hated the Dodgers growing up.
Yeah.
And here's another thing, too. Who would have thought ever when I was growing up that we would have baseball in Sacramento, let alone Towny and you over here, that we'd have baseball in West Sacramento? And we have it. And this is a city I grew up in West Sacramento. It's just unbelievable.
But I'm glad we can talk about that because you grew up an A's fan. And now that we're talking about someone like Monty Moore, you grew up listening to Monty Moore. You grew up watching those games on NBC.
Oh, yes.
So people need to know that because so many people just think about you as the Dodgers. The reason why he's on with me doing NBC Sports California, doing A's Cast on there is because you grew up an A's fan.
I did. And Monty Moore was absolutely, one word that comes to me when I talk about Monty Moore, magic. He was magic. It was velvet coming through the lines, listening to him talk about the A's. So folksy and so good and so talented at what he did. And he matched up with anybody on the national level, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think about my career as I'm a little bit closer to Tim Hudson.
Yeah.
As I really started in 97. And when did Huddy come up? Was it 98 or 99?
Hudson was 99, I'm pretty sure.
99.
Against the Padres.
Yeah, he started against the Padres, and then his first win was against the Dodgers.
99, yep.
Yeah, so I was pretty early in my career when I interviewed Tim Hudson. I remember Mulder. I remember Zito. So I remember, that was kind of like – it was a great time in the Bay Area because the Giants were also going to postseason games. I was working at KNBR at the time, and I remember – can't remember which year it might have been 01, but there was one of the years where I went to Mets Giants at Pac Bell Park in the morning and then went over to the Coliseum that night and saw A's Yankees, did 2 playoff games in one day. And that early 2000s when you had the A's were rolling, this is when Moneyball and this is,
right in the heat
Giambi's winning the MVP in 2000. It was 2000. Ichiro was 01.
Correct. Yeah.
Tejada was in 02. But you think of that run with Giambi, then he'd leave and they keep it going. Giants had Barry Bonds, obviously, and Barry was setting the record, and a lot of things were going on. But baseball in the Bay Area, really, when I was really getting my career started, it was booming. And being a baseball guy, it was great for me and great for my career. So I think of the big three, of interviewing them when I was on KNBR and I was relatively young. It's pretty cool now to see them. And where we are here at the ballpark in West Sacramento, we look up. We see Reggie Jackson, Ricky Henderson, Dennis Eckersley. We see the Hall of Famers right here. Yes. And I mentioned that in these interviews that this is what you're joining, because not only are we talking about the greatness that happened in Oakland, but you talk about the greatness that happened in Philadelphia with all their World Series and all their Hall of Famers. And when you talk about joining the A's Hall of Fame, I mean, you're joining really a who's who, and you're a part of this forever.
Yes. I mean, the A's Hall of Fame, this is a real storied franchise. 9-time world champions. I mean, going back to 1910. I mean, this is amazing what they've done, this organization, all over the period of time. I mean, just fantastic. The great Ty Cobb, didn't he play for the Philadelphia Athletics?
Yeah, towards the end of his career, yes.
At the end of his career. I mean, so anyway, you look at these guys' names and numbers that through here, and Eckersley, Fingers. You got Dave Stewart over there. I mean, it's not just the guys that played a long time ago. You guys got more contemporary here as you go along, and see guys like Fingers or Dave Stewart. Guy I played against was very deservingly.
Think of like recently when we go Carney Lansford.
Yeah.
And you think about Terry Steinbach, you think about the great Jose Canseco.
Yeah.
And I mentioned all these guys, hey, you better be ready. It gets emotional. Even Jose Canseco was crying.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, look, these guys love the organization. They grew up in it. And then to make such an impact on it like that, it is an emotional thing. It's very much an emotional thing. So I understand it. I mean, being in the Hall of Fame in anything is a pretty great thing. I can tell you when I came into the Sacramento Hall of Fame, just right in front of Johnny Dasco, we were like pretty close to one another.
That just does not seem right.
Well, you know what?
it's just the fact that
Johnny Dasco, 30 years behind the booth, in the booth, behind the microphone, working.
You're a 2-time World Series champion.
Yeah.
5-time All-Star.
Yeah. And but to go into your hometown Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I understand
it's
you.
It is.
How did Johnny come in right after you? Seems like it should have.
Wow. Oh, Johnny deserves it.
Small class 8 years.
Oh my gosh. No. Come on, Towny.
Did he grease the right people? He put in the right donation? Is that what
he
happened?
Deserves it?
No, of course. Johnny D, the great Johnny.
Yeah.
All right, we got the big 3 for you. We are going to go Mulder here at 440. 510 is going to be Barry Zito, and then we'll close it out with Tim Hudson at 535. But second overall pick out of Michigan State. You want to talk about a guy who looked the part. Good looking, tall, great arm. Mark Mulder was a beast. Here is the left-hander. Well, now joining us here on A's Cast Live, he's one of the new members of the A's Hall of Fame, Mark Mulder, the lefty. How are you, my friend? It is good to see you.
It is good, man. Everything's going great. It's great to see you again.
How about this honor when you heard that you were going to go in, just not for yourself, but as we've talked with Barry Zito and Tim Hudson, basically your two brothers, the guys that mean so much to you. When you heard you were going in, and then you heard you were going in with them, what were the original feelings?
Well, it all came through on an email, and I'm not going to lie, it was kind of an unexpected thing. I had no clue about it or anything like that, and when I got it, it was. The title of the email, I forget exactly what it said, but it said something about A's Hall of Fame and this and that. And I was just like, huh? So I started reading it and seeing that all of us were in together. And I'm not going to lie, man, it kind of got me for a minute. It wasn't, when something like that is that unexpected, it kind of catches you off guard. And, it's not that any of us, obviously Barry was there longer. Had the most time with the A's and things like that. But I just think the three of us had a really fun run, and those teams were pretty special to the Athletics history.
Well, I was just talking to Barry Zito about this, and now that we're years from that, we run into so many executives in baseball now, whether it's guys or GMs or assistant GMs or whatever their title is. They grew up watching that era of baseball. Yeah. Then the book comes out. Then the movie comes out. And it inspired these guys that end up going to Yale and Harvard and Princeton, all these places. But they wanted to be in baseball because of that era. And you guys were such a big part. You had those great Yankee teams. You had Red Sox teams, but here the A's were. And then, the movie and the book and everything. It's a big part of just not A's history. It's a big part of baseball history. And that era that you played in and you starred in inspired a generation of what's now running our game.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny that you say that because when I travel here and there and I do a bunch of golf tournaments and just fun things, and I travel with my kids and things for their sports. Believe it or not, I hear it from people all the time, and they say, "Oh my gosh, when I was younger, I was such a big fan of your Oakland teams." And for whatever reason, and I'm talking before the book and the movie and things like that. It's that time of baseball history with TV and all the games, just the access and the interest, I think, is because of the Yankees' success and their domination for a little bit there. there was just a lot of people that were really into baseball at that time. And not that they weren't at other times. It's just the way it got around and how much we were kind of seen and how much we were kind of liked throughout the country. I mean, I have people tell me all the time, oh, we would have loved to have seen you guys win some of those series and stuff like that. We just wanted to see you guys go to a World Series and, stuff like that. So I think there were a lot of people around the country that were pulling for us in a lot of those matchups in the playoffs and things like that.
Well, and I also think of all the different guys that you had come through that clubhouse during that time when you were with the Athletics. It was such a good group. It's like Billy Beane had his finger on the pulse of you need good guys that are going to fit in here. And you had so many of those guys come through. Just talk about just remembering some of the teams and what the guys were like.
Well, I mean, some of those guys are still good. Some of my best friends today. I mean, there's a group text. It's myself, obviously, Huddy and Zito, and I think Chavez, Menachino, Giambi, maybe Markel. There's a couple group texts that I have from a few of those that it's just hilarious. It kind of gets going, and next thing you know, some stupid picture pops up, and Frankie Menachino generally makes some dumb comment making fun of somebody, and then somebody makes fun of his size and his height. And things like that. Like there was one a couple weeks ago. I think Frankie sent a picture of a fish, and then I think Giambi might have said, "Well, at least you're bigger than the fish, Frank." So just stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of never ending. And being out here in Arizona for a long time, Jermaine Dye is one of my best friends. He's moved. He lived here for a while, then he went to San Diego. Now he's back. So him and I golf a lot. Chavez. Now that he's with the Mets, he's not here as much, but him and I golfed all the time. Mark Ellis lived here for a while. So, a lot of these guys, we stay in touch. Bobby Crosby's still a good buddy of mine. I go every year to see him in spring training. I take my youngest son who plays baseball. And, so there's a big camaraderie there. And, a lot of us were very young coming up together through those years. So, we all grew up together a little bit too. Very few of us, handful of us were married. Huddy was married, things like that. But, his wife, Kim, is more like a sister to me. And it's just, it was a really cool time and a lot of great friendships.
That's why you guys going in together, obviously that we can sit here and talk about you guys pushed each other and all that kind of stuff. But the closeness of the big three of what you guys meant to each other, just not as teammates, but really you see each other as family. It's a special bond. So the fact that the three of you are going in together, and yes, you did push each other, and that's what led to so much good stuff. But it's more than just baseball with you three.
It really is. I mean, there's conversations I've had with Barry about family, about his kids, about my kids. Huddy's kids are a little bit older, so I mean, I remember them as newborns. And now they've all graduated high school. They're almost done. I think his youngest son, Cade, is maybe a sophomore or junior in college now. I could even be wrong, but point is they're almost all done with college. So, like you said, they're more like brothers. They're more like family, and they meant the world to me. As you said about the pushing each other. That is an aspect of it. None of us wanted to be the weak link. All of us wanted to find our success. And, because of them too, I had more success. I don't think I would have found the success that I had without the two of them.
I think about there was a time of just your dominance of, knew when Mark Mulder was on the mound, this game wasn't going to take long. This was going to be this was going to be 2 hours, 15 minutes. We all miss those days, but just when you've had time to, when you get away from golf and you get away from everything and time just to think about your career, what do you think about when you think about the good times? I know great athletes always think about the bad times for some reason, but when you think about the good times, what do you really remember?
Gosh, some of my memories, some of my favorite games, like you just said, sometimes you remember too many of the poor ones, but there's a handful of the good ones that I remember. And I remember the feeling. I was fortunate enough to throw a bunch of complete games. And, a lot of them were quick. And I remember the feeling in the stadium when I jogged out for the ninth inning. that feeling that those fans gave me, sometimes the place was filled, sometimes it wasn't. One of my kids found on YouTube not that long ago of opening day of 2002 when I started against the Rangers and we won that game, and we kind of fast forwarded through the game, and the kids were laughing about it, and I was showing my youngest son, we were laying in bed, and I'm showing him parts of the game and stuff, and I can still remember that moment of going out for that ninth inning and not having the success. I mean, we had a big lead, so I did not have the success, and I did not finish that game. But there was nothing more that I wanted to do than to finish that game on opening day. And those are probably my more vivid ones, are the complete games and things like that, and a few dugout times during the games that I remember. But it is funny, man. It's kind of crazy as the years go by how little you remember and a lot of the things you forget.
When you talk about the juice, because that's what it is, it's the juice. So you're going out there for the ninth inning, crowd's going nuts. What has golf fulfilled in your life? Because you can't play baseball anymore. Those times were done. What was golf able to somehow move in and take that part of your life where you're looking for that certain thing where you're now competing, whether it's in Tahoe or the different tournaments and you're on TV?
Oh, yeah. Golf's been huge for me. I think, with my career ending the way it did because of injuries and stuff, it was hard. It was really hard because, there I was 29, 30 years old. And with, I think we had 2 kids at the time, or actually 1 and another one on the way. And all of a sudden you're done and you're just going, okay, now what? And, I always loved golf, but I'd never competed in it. And I think for me mentally, giving me something to look forward to, something for me to get that nervous energy feeling that just to compete, even in small tournaments here in Arizona, it didn't have to be some of these big ones on TV or anything like that. I needed to compete for this to almost keep my sanity. That might be extreme, but you know what I'm saying. It's just
totally, yeah.
I just needed to find something like that because from the age of, I don't know, let's just say 12, 8, 12 years old, when you start to really compete in sports, when you're young, it doesn't matter. But when you get to 12, 13, you start to have a little bit of fire, I guess you could say. And, here I am 29 years old and it's just gone. And I think for me mentally, it helped me more than anything just to, make me a little bit happier, I guess you might say. I wasn't upset my career ended. I mean, it was difficult, but there was nothing I could do about it. It was just physically, I couldn't do it at the level I wanted to do it anymore. And, golf became that outlet for me.
Well, if you go back, and some of the people who followed my career, they may remember back with a certain San Francisco sports radio station when I was doing Afternoon Drive, you did a weekly hit with us. Every single week, you were working at ESPN at the time. You'd come on with us. We'd break down all of baseball, and we'd talk A's. You had started playing catch with somebody. You'd found a new, I can't remember exactly what the arm slot was, and you were going to make a comeback. You believed, I believe it was with the Angels, and you were in camp until you blew out your Achilles, but you were making a comeback, and you believed at least being able to come in as a reliever. We were kind of a part of that journey with you. Do you ever think back to that too? Because you felt like your arm was back.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't in any way a new delivery. It was more of just my hands were separating up here, so my arm action was a little bit shorter. And yeah, I worked harder than I ever had that entire offseason trying to come back. And day 2 of spring training, we were doing our warm up, and I mean literally day 2. We're doing our warm up, and I'm backpedaling to a cone, and I go forward to a cone to my right and pop. And you see it now. You saw a couple basketball guys recently in the playoffs, Jason Tatum being one of them, and I think Lillard was another one. I mean, it happens, and I don't wish it on anyone because it was kind of a miserable rehab and very difficult. And when I did get done with that rehab and I started throwing again, it wasn't the same. And everybody said to me, "Oh, just give it a shot, just try." But I knew what I needed to be able to do in order to show up at a camp and try to compete. And it wasn't there. And that was another, tough letdown. And then of course I dove back into the ESPN and back into some golf stuff and things like that. So things didn't exactly go the way I would have liked, but that's the way it goes.
Well, when I think for you now, your kids are very competitive. As I know, your oldest is very competitive. How much fun is it watching, and whether it's your son who plays golf or your son that plays baseball, just how much is it fun is it now as a dad watching your kids compete? And you probably see a lot of you in them.
Yeah, I do. It's just some of these kids they're so, I don't know if you want to say hard on themselves. Sometimes you don't quite see the enjoyment you wish you saw, but I think both my boys and my daughter does a lot of dance and things. I think they all enjoy what they're doing, but to have fun in that is probably the most important thing. And I see it with my oldest son in golf. I think he's a junior, or just finished his junior year, and he'll end up playing golf in college somewhere. And sometimes this side of it takes a little bit of time to figure out what works for him and how to get the best of himself on the golf course. And with my youngest with baseball, it's the same thing. It's trying to find that sweet spot mentally of what works for you and how to find success your own way.
Well, I can tell you on that day when you guys are officially inducted into the A's Hall of Fame, it's going to be very special for you. The crowds here are going to be fired up. I emceed it last year. And as I just told Barry Zito, when you get Jose Canseco to cry, all of a sudden you realize it gets pretty emotional really fast. So, and your kids, the great thing too is the kids, and same thing for Barry. Your kids were obviously they'll really get a chance to see all the love that's going to pour out and how great your career really was. It's going to mean a lot.
Yeah, it is. I know I'll probably lose it with them being there. They're all going to come. I've already checked schedules and things like that. And I know my oldest doesn't have a tournament or anything. So, and then the other two kids will be fine because there's nothing that important. So, everybody will be there. And like you said, I know when that time comes, it'll get me.
No doubt, because you're going to live in A's history forever, and you should, because you're one of the greatest A's of all time. Thank you so much. We always appreciate your time. Hit them straight on the golf course, and we'll see you on the day of the ceremony. You be well.
I thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Mark Mulder right here on A's Cast Live. When you think of it was sad to see him get hurt, but Mulder had such incredible talent. He could finish a complete game in 2 hours 10, 2 hours 15 minutes. Just coming downhill, the big lefty and that split and the slider. He was just nasty. Let's pause for station identification right here on A's Cast. Up next, the AL Rookie of the Month is... We'll tell you, and you'll hear from Barry Zito. That's all coming up next right here on A's Cast Live.
Star researcher and best-selling New York Times author Paul Hembekides joined A's Cast Live of Towny and provided compelling reasons why he believes Jacob Wilson will be the American League Rookie of the Year.
No disrespect to Bobby Crosby, but Jacob Wilson is going to be... Jacob Wilson is going to be the best rookie shortstop that the A's have had in a generation. The reason I'm so confident in the skill set is because it's highly transferable. I have seen him absolutely mash at every level. And the fact that he can, at least for the sample size that we do have in college, plus a short stint in the minor leagues, to be totally honest with you, is highly transferable because it's consistent barrel contact. It's consistent bat to ball. It's like a 60 hit tool on the 20 to 80 scale. And the scouts are telling me that he can fake it to average in the power department potentially right away. And by the way, I see a lot of juice in that barrel, like at least 50 juice in that barrel. And maybe it will play right away. We know he's got the baseball bloodlines. Again, I think he can play shortstop representatively. I just named a whole bunch of things that are very value positive for an A's team that's going to give them the opportunity to play every single day, which is another part of this award, of course. But this is as much a performance award as it is an opportunity award. And so you're going to put this guy at shortstop on opening day right away. The game is not going to be too fast for him. I think the fact that he is in baseball lineage does certainly help. But a unicorn skill, like that kind of hand-eye, that premium hand-eye coordination, and that strong contact balance that he creates good line drive swings with. I'm a big fan of this kid's swing, and I think by the end of the season, we are talking about a player who might well win the Rookie of the Year.
You can watch the full interview at youtube.com/athletics or listen at athletics.com/A'sCast. A's legend and Mets hitting coach Eric Chavez joined Chris Townsend on A's Cast Live to discuss his Athletics Hall of Fame induction.
Yeah, it's weird. Actually, it's the first time I've heard it said in a while. So, yeah, it's great honor. Obviously, the history with this organization, all the great people that are in the Hall of Fame, players and staff members. Definitely a big honor for me. You know, I didn't make all-star teams or anything like that. So, to kind of have that.
You won a few Gold Gloves. You're pretty out.
A couple awards. But, yeah, it's I love this organization. Obviously, started my career here, drafted, and met a lot of good people along the way.
You can watch the full interview at youtube.com/athletics or listen at athletics.com/A'sCast.
Streaming from West Sacramento, A's Cast Live continues with Chris Townsend.
All righty, the rookie of the month in the AL for the month of May is Jacob Wilson. He had 368.
That's it?
That's all?
You know, it's so funny. Like, you bring that number up because we had so many people in our sport try and tell us batting average doesn't matter. And it's just like history repeats itself. No matter what business you're in, old things will come back. Even your bell-bottom days you probably thought would never come back, Steve Sachs. Yeah. Bell-bottoms are back.
I'm not wearing them. I ain't that hot to wear bell-bottoms. No, I got to wear them.
But you probably did.
I wore them, a long time ago. No doubt.
I guarantee you rocked them.
No doubt.
But batting average is back.
Yes, sir.
And Jacob Wilson at 368 for the month of May, 39 hits, 4 home runs, which is probably the thing that we have watched and been so impressed with is his ability to turn on baseballs when it presents itself. Someone hangs something, inner half of the plate, his ability to turn on it. 16 RBIs and a 975 OPS. He has 17 hits in his last 37 at-bats. His batting average has been raised to 355. But for the month of May, hitting 368, you, as a former Rookie of the Year, we know he's the front runner right now, still a long way to go, but you've been really, really impressed with this kid.
I'm so impressed with him. All about him, his personality is great. Everything about him is the real deal. Going back and spending some time and talking with his dad Jack, here as well. It's the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and you can see why he's as good as he is. You know, all those things you talked about. You know, batting average doesn't matter. Exit velocity is where it's at. It's about launch angle. Well, he has one of the poorest launch angles. He has one of the poorest bat speeds. He has one of the poorest exit velocities in the league, and in my estimation, he's going to be a landslide runaway for Rookie of the Year if he just keeps up some semblance of what he's doing now, because it's not even close. He's also going to be on the All-Star team, and he's going to be one of the best players in the American League, bar none. This kid is incredible. This kid, I mean, if you look back what he did in college, he hit over 400. Last year, his 3 stints through the minor leagues, hit 433, and now he's hitting about 355. I'm seeing a pattern here, Towny. Cody, I'm seeing a pattern with this kid, and maybe we're seeing something generational here because he's phenomenal.
Well, when we start talking about Tony Gwynn, Wade Boggs, Rod Carew, Ichiro, who's going into the Hall of Fame, since we're doing a lot of Hall of Fame today.
Yeah,
Ichiro going into the Hall of Fame in late July. there's been players, you've seen it, where they just dominate, and then they come up to the big leagues and they keep doing it, and then they do it for an entire career.
Yeah.
To hit like this, to hit this high, there's no fluke. You got to it's got to be bat to ball. It's got to be on a consistent basis. He hit 400 in the minor leagues. He's now hitting, what did I say,
355.
355. I mean, this is extreme bat to ball skills. He's been doing this. He did it in college. He did it in the minor leagues. He's now doing it in the pros. This thing is real. How good can it be? I don't know, but we haven't seen an A's player since Miguel Tejada have 200 hits. That was in 2002. He was a shortstop too. We know what a special player was. He won the MVP that year. But Jacob Wilson has the look of a guy that's going to be getting 200 hits a lot. You got 200 hits. You did it in both leagues. It's something that's very hard to do.
Yeah, well, Jacob Wilson could definitely do that. There's no doubt in my mind. I think something was really interesting when you said he can pull the ball and go deep when it presents itself. I've seen him do it many times, and to me, it looks like when that hanging curveball comes in the zone, his eyes light up, and he tries to hit the ball out of the park. Is what a good hitter does, and he does it. He accomplishes that. But he takes what the pitcher gives him. He can take a pitch that's a hard sinker coming in from a right-hander and inside out that ball with some authority to right center field. You can't really teach that. And when you see a kid do this time after time and just absolutely dominate pitchers, guys that are supposed to be at the top of the heap, with his funky way that he sets up with an open stance and then stammering, and right before the ball gets in flight, he's in launching position and he's waiting. He's solid, and there's no moving around then. He's in launching position and ready to go, and he just murders the baseball. I love watching him. I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah, you talked about his dad, Jack Wilson, who got into boxing after his great career with the Pirates, Mariners,
Braves.
He was a Brave. Yeah. I don't remember him as a Brave, but his dad was an all-star, had 200 hits. But he talked about movement, right? And you don't want to be just stationary and then move.
Right.
It's about that. It's about that constant movement. Yep. And what we see, and I know people can't watch this on A's Cast or 650 KSTE, but he starts open. But as he starts, those feet start to move in the box. He starts to square himself, right? Square. So he starts open, he's squaring, and bang, and then he pulls the trigger. It reminds me a lot, and I know this is an old reference, but I saw this. It was the same thing the great Hall of Fame golfer Lee Trevino used to do. Oh. He lined up supremely left, so his whole body was left, but as he would put the club down, he would start to move like Jacob Wilson, and he would start to move his body, and he'd start to close and start to close and start to close. And once his body, and he felt like he was aligned with his target, boom, he went. Yeah. It's very, very similar to what Jacob Wilson does, right?
Yeah.
Opens, and it's close. And then when the ball's coming, boom, he's in perfect position to hit. It's his style. There's constant movement there, so he's never just still and then trying to move.
Yep.
His bat-to-ball skills, what we have seen. And I can see how this drives the front office nuts. He is not our front office type of player. Let's just be honest. I've known these guys. I mean, I've known David Force since we were both kind of kids in this business. I mean, it goes back that long. And I can tell you when he's swinging at first pitches or really early in the count and the ball may not be a strike and he grounds out, I know they just cringe.
Yeah. But you know, the great thing about that, what you just mentioned, Towny, you're absolutely right about 100% of it. Drives front offices crazy. It's not what you try to teach. But they're also smart enough, because there's smart people up there.
Correct.
David Force is a very smart man. He also knows that what he has on his hands is something extremely rare. You can't teach what Jacob Wilson does. He is so good at it. His approach is so different. What you do with him is you throw him batting practice, hit him ground balls, because he's an excellent defender, I think, too, and just get the heck out of his way, man. There's some guys, just leave him alone. Nobody's gonna outwork him. He works his tail off. I see him all the time out here, so you don't have to worry about that. Just get him ready, hit him ground balls, throw him BP, and just move. Let him do the rest, because he is so rare. I mean, you very rarely see somebody that's this good that does it at this approach. It's astonishing to me every time I watch him, and I see him get better all the time.
Who would you say you played with? Because I know you played against Gwynn, you played against Boggs, the guys we reference all the time. Who did you play with that would rival? I mean, you yourself, obviously, with what you did with hitting for a lot of hits and a lot of average. But who would you play with us? Who's super high average guy that the hitting coach would just go, hey, you do what you do?
Oh, yeah. There's a couple guys like that. Now, I needed a lot of maintenance. I valued the instruction because I tried to just grind it out. But you get guys like, you get a guy like Don Mattingly. I played with him.
Donnie Baseball.
I mean, he would outwork all the coaches. You just put him BP, give him a tee, throw him some ground balls and just get the heck out of his way. I would say that the work ethic and the approach is kind of like Don Mattingly, and I've never seen a guy work like that.
Because I think of like Ichiro. You weren't saying, yeah, Ichiro, you just do what you do.
Do what you do. I mean,
we knew back in the day in San Diego there was no hitting coach grinding Tony Gwynn. They just
Tony Gwynn?
Gwynn had what he showed up to the ballpark.
Took his video with him.
He had his regimen. He had he had all his tee work. He did what he did. I'm not so sure about Boggs, but I mean, some of the greats, everybody just stays out of their way. You just do what you do.
You know, I'll tell you a quick one about Boggs. About Don Mattingly, if I may, a very short little story. Last day of the season in 1989, he's having another big year. He had some injuries, but we were out of the race probably by 2 weeks already. And this was October 1st, last day of the season, sweltering hot in New York. I go underneath the stadium to a makeshift batting cage I had in those days to get my bat. And there was Don Mattingly on the last day of the season. He's one of the best players in the game. We're out of the race by a long shot. He's been in the cage for an hour on the last day of the season when we've been out of it 2 weeks. Hands bleeding from the blisters of all the work he's been doing that morning. And after the game was over, we were going home. And not only did he do that work ethic, but he also played in the game. And you just look at the guy and say, I don't get it. How could somebody go at it like this? What is it? And the answer is very simple, because he doesn't know any different. That's all he knew. And that's what I can say about Jacob Wilson. That's all he knows. So just get out of his way, man. Get out of his way.
So we'll talk a lot of Jacob Wilson. By the way, he's going to join us tomorrow right here on A's Cast Live.
Great.
We'll have the Rookie of the Month for the month of May in the American League, Jacob Wilson. Who won it in the National League?
Drake Baldwin from the Braves.
Okay.
And Jacob Wilson's the first A's player to win Rookie of the Month since Zach Geloff did it in 2023.
Wow.
So it's been a while.
When are we going to see Zach Geloff?
He was out here earlier working. I saw him.
Yeah, I know he's been working. Just can't wait
Body's
to
in good
see
shape.
him.
I saw him. His body looks good.
Yeah.
So he's moving around okay.
Kind of like Towny this morning.
So when we're doing these interviews, obviously we're out in the sun. It's hot, right?
I got that picture. I said, Towny looks really good in this.
Took the shirt off, and I'm like, I was roaming around here like it was a beach today here in West Sacramento.
Yeah, it was hot.
Like I was
soft,
on the.
aren't you?
Yeah.
I have been looking forward to this all.
It was hot.
David Force, what?
I have been looking forward to this all day.
It's like I was out on the Delta.
Yeah. It's hot out there. No question.
I was out here, no shirt on today.
Looked exactly like Kurt Russell.
Old fat guy hanging out. It was great.
No, you look fat, bro. You look good.
Barry Zito was different.
Mm-hmm.
Barry Zito was Southern California. Barry Zito was a guy that wasn't like most baseball players. When you interviewed him, you knew there was a part of him that he was an artsy kind of guy. Got that from his parents. Loved music, loved the guitar. He's turned it into a second career. But man, what that guy had was a hammer.
Yeah.
And it was a curveball. It's always amazed me because right-handers traditionally, when you think of some of the great right-handed curveballs, you face Nolan Ryan, you face Dwight Gooden, you think about that big over 12, we call it 12-6 when you think about the clock, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, the big Uncle Charlie coming right down.
Or called a drop. When we were kids, they called it a drop ball. Here comes a drop.
But that arm angle of the lefty and the curveball's different, and the way they drop it right in on you. And he had such control over it to where he could throw it for a strike. He could throw it anywhere in the strike zone. He could drop it down below as a strikeout pitch. He had an unbelievable changeup, had some velocity. It was just natural flowing. Just God gave this kid a great gift. And Barry Zito, just like Mark Mulder. I mean, Mark Mulder, we were just looking at it. 103 wins and only 60 losses. Mulder was incredible, but so was Barry Zito, a Cy Young Award winner. He was just he was special.
Yep. And, you mentioned Mulder and him together in 2001 combined for 38 wins between those two guys in 2001. And then Zito the next year, of course, he wins 23 games in his own right. But His stuff was great. His curveball, I never faced him, of course, different generation, but his curveball was big and nasty. I've seen plenty of video on it. But I think one thing gets underrated about Barry Zito is he had a real smooth late life to his fastball that he liked to work up in the strike zone. He was a prototypical pitcher that would change the eye angle of the hitter, and that's why he got so many swing and misses in the dirt, because he would run that fastball maybe 2 times in a row with 2 strikes and have me for a couple of balls. Then he'd drop that hammer on him, and they'd swing at it in the dirt all the time, because you can't tell the difference when you see the fastball twice right here. It's very close to your eyes, and then you see it twice, and then you see the same semblance of that coming out of that exact window, but it's a curveball. You go after it, and you miss it by 2 feet. He missed the ball by 2 feet. It's very simple how he got people out.
He was nasty. So we just did new A's Hall of Famer Mark Mulder, and now here's also one of the newest members of the 2025 class, former Cy Young Award winner, the great Barry Zito. Well, now joining us here, he's new A's Hall of Famer Barry Zito. Barry, welcome back to the program. Hope you are doing well, and congratulations on this honor.
Thank you so much. This is awesome, man. I was so pumped when I heard the news recently, and yeah, I'm excited to get back there and go through everything, see everybody.
You know, when you think about your career as a Cy Young Award winner, you think about the World Series, you think about the All-Stars. This is just like finally icing on the cake, and you're going to go in with the 2 guys, with Tim Hudson and Mark Mulder, the 3 of you, what you guys meant to each other, what you meant to each other's careers on and off the field, your lives. Just how big is it? Not only are you going in, but you're going in with 2 guys who are like your brothers.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that none of us would have it any other way, right? Huddy or Mulder, because we were all just, we were part of something greater, certainly with the big 3, but even more with the team and everything special that we did, with the playoffs, most of those years that we were together. It was always something bigger than us.
It's been interesting talking to you over the years, because obviously you have the new interest in music. You turn the page after your career. Not everybody does that. A lot of people like to stay in the game, or they reminisce a lot. You've kind of moved on. So when you now think back, do you ever get that time to really think back about your career, about how great you were, an honor like this, why you're getting this honor? Have you been able to step away from music at all ever and really remember what it was like, Barry Zito, the baseball player?
Yeah, I think it's been healthy for me to have something new, because it has given me a more clear perspective of, the past life that was baseball. And I think if I was still in the game, I would there'd be some tension there for sure. I think most of us that leave the game, there's always tension. It's just hard, and rarely any of us leave on our own terms. And so it's really allowed me to step out of it, kind of not really even know the names of people playing on TV anymore and all that. But in a healthy way, it allows me to fully appreciate what I did, instead of feeling like maybe that I'm still mad that I didn't do this, and this, right? And I think that feeling would be a little more on me if I was still in the game, right? Because you're just kind of still in it, right? It's like everyone's still looking at you. You're still in front of the camera. So it's been really helpful to have this new passion.
It's so funny how so many of the great players, and it happens in all of sports, right? I heard Jack Nicklaus talk about this once, going, I won 18 majors, but I remember the ones that I should have won and the ones that I lost. It's amazing how so many players, you don't always recall the good stuff. You remember, man, if I just would have done this or done that. You had such an unbelievable career, Barry.
Yeah, listen, if you rewinded 20 years, right, or 25 years, so I'm in high school or whatever, middle school, and you're like, hey, this is going to be what it is. Would you be stoked? Be like, oh, dude, that'd be epic, right? But then you get there, and I think that's the thing that makes you stand out in any field, is that your expectations or your vision is so much greater than maybe people might think, right? So that when you achieve a thing, yes, you're excited, but you're also like, okay, this is exactly what I'm going for. Now, what are we going to do now? Right. And it's always the what's next thing. So I think that helps you get to those higher places. But I also think that it can be a double-edged sword, because sometimes you just want to be fully grateful and enjoy being on the field, right? Instead of like, oh, I have to do this. This is what I was made for. You know, it's like, dude, no, hold on, man. Like, just take it in, breathe it in, look around, look at these fans. This is amazing. And I think that's the part you miss out on sometimes, is to truly be there and experience it.
And it was a beautiful story with the A's when you played for them, right? It was the little engine that could. It became such a good story. They did a book about it. They did a movie about it. Now, obviously, they didn't mention how great the pitching was and that Miguel Tejada was going to be the MVP and that kind of stuff. But still, you know, we were just talking about it on NBC the other day about how, you know, you guys were way back on May 30th. And then, of course, you win 20 straight games. But there was just such a special time of A's baseball where you guys came together. You're going up against these big money teams. You're competing. You were going to the playoffs. You were so good. Talk about that time, because it really was not only a special time in this organization's history, but it also was a special time in baseball.
Yeah, and I don't think that's something that we knew, right? Because a lot of times when you're in it and you're kind of head down focused, you don't know the impacts that you're making, or the kind of like when you're driving the boat on a lake, you're not really paying attention to the water behind you that's been moving as a result. And I think that helped us. And it's funny, I don't remember being kind of back on May 30th. I don't remember that we didn't start out great. It's the kind of things that you forget about a little bit. You remember the high moments sometimes during those seasons, but the way that we came together every year, from my early years, like in 2000, we came together. You know, we won a game in Yankee Stadium in the playoffs, right? And we kind of lost a heartbreaker at 5, and then 2001, you know, the Seattle Mariners won like 150,000 games, and you know, we still managed to get the wild card. I think we had over 100 wins. You know, 2002, right? Like you're talking about the 20-game win streak, the way that, you know, Hatterberg can, that thing. It's like every year was just a different, amazing story that was playing out. Yet while we were living it, we didn't totally know what was going on. But looking back, we're like, wow, that was really special.
And I just think about all the different guys that you played with inside the Athletics clubhouse. It always seemed to be a very unique and special group that got along so well. So just talk about, you know, what it was like being in that clubhouse and how special it was, what all those guys meant to you.
Yeah, they were. I mean, you know, ever since I really signed, you know, in 99, I started to meet some of these guys that I would end up being on the major league field with. All right. My first true buddy was Eric Burns, who I played against when I was in college. He took me deep when he was with UCLA, and he was in third, and Troy Gloss was hitting fourth. And I'll never forget the homer he hit up me in Santa Barbara. And he didn't forget either, because I remember that first time we kind of hung out in minor leagues. You know, he reminded me of that in true Burns fashion. But you know, after that, it was Adam Pyatt. You know, me and Adam were roommates in AA, and then coming up to AAA, I met Mulder for the first time when I got called up to AAA, and he was a little bit ahead of me at that point. As far as the draft and all that stuff, he was a year before me. But, you know, I met these guys on the way up. Like Terrence Long was another guy I met in AAA. And I never would have known that these are the guys that would have been kind of surrounding me on the field in my first few magical years in the big leagues. And then even like the free agents we signed just fit right in. I mean, Jermaine Dye was a guy who just fit in. Johnny Damon. You know, some of these guys just became such character in the clubhouse. And you know, whoever was scouting not only the players and their skills, but more about their personalities was dead on. I mean, obviously it was Billy and Paul probably doing that, but these guys just, I mean, they just came into the clubhouse, and we were already so tight in there.
Well, and then the big three, as close as you guys were, but also how you pushed each other, that no one wanted to be the weak link, and it was all about greatness. And just talk about what they meant to you in your career, what you meant to them. It was something special that the three of you had that bond.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you know, Hudson was the kind of guy that set the tone. I think he came up first in 99, and obviously had that big split finger. And you know, me and Mulder were wherever we were at that point, watching him on TV and being like, wow. And then, you know, then Mulder came up after that, and I came up kind of more in the middle of that 2000 season. And I think that we didn't really know we're going to be together. But I think, once the rotation established itself at the end of that year, 2000, and all of us were pitching in the playoffs, we're like, oh, okay, this is like kind of a special thing. Like we're all, 22, 23, 24, whatever it was, pitching in big postseason games, right? Not just having games in the regular season.
I mean,
I think part of it,
you're at Yankee Stadium, you're at Fenway Park, you're in the biggest venues in the game.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and I think part of that was that we didn't totally know what we were going up against, right? You're just young, you're like shooting for the stars, you're trying to get to the big leagues, and when you do, you're trying to just like, oh my gosh, I've been watching those guys on TV, for years. Now I'm pitching against them. So it's very surreal in the early stages of being in the big leagues because you're just running on full adrenaline, and I think all of us were doing that. But it was really fun to watch Mulder, like on Friday, kind of his sinker, and then like let's say Huddy would come through on a Saturday, day after, and he's trying to make sure he holds up his end of the deal. And then if I was watching a Sunday day game, so in a way it was like we were competing, but really it's like we just didn't want to be the guy that was going to screw up,
Well, and the reason why I always like to bring up that why it was such a special time is that we have now realized, Barry, through the years that all these different guys who are now running baseball teams and guys who are in these front offices, they all got into the front office because they watched that era of baseball, and then the book and the movie came out. It inspired everybody to want to build teams like the A's, build like the teams that you're on. So that's why I always bring it up. It really was a special time in baseball that we still talk about today with a lot of, they're not young anymore. Obviously they're a lot older, but when they were growing up, that was when they were watching it. Speaking of Sacramento, with the River Cats here, a lot of your guys' jerseys still hang up here in and around the offices, and there's different places from that show memorabilia for when you guys won. The River Cats were very successful when the A's were the affiliate. What do you remember about playing in Sacramento back in the day?
Yeah, well, I'll never forget that because the first year that stadium was built was my first year, first full season in pro ball. And so, we were slated to start. I was excited, to start in AAA after my training, and but the stadium wasn't done. So we had a 6-week road trip because we couldn't play home game. So I just remember them telling us this, and literally packing 2 suitcases, the biggest suitcases, and just okay. Our road trip was so long in the PCL that we were hitting cities 2 times in that road trip. And we're like, yeah, we're still on the road. And AAA is great, but the hotels are not great. And especially when you go to some of those cities back then. I remember specifically El Paso was definitely a little rough. Some of these places were pretty rough, but yeah, and we finally got to play at what was Rayleigh Field at that point, and it was just it's like we could appreciate it so much more because we, they'd been holding out for so long. And, but yeah, I got called up to the big leagues, playing on that team, and some very fond memories. Ironically, I was in Vegas when I got called up to the big leagues, and I was doing the gun, me and a guy named Marcus Jones, and I got news that I had gotten called up and was going to pitch at home against the Angels, and I'll never forget that day, man.
That is awesome. Yeah, you can only go through El Paso so many times before we got to get home.
Yeah, exactly, man. Not to mention there was an absolute airport of the park too, so it's not only the city wasn't great in the hotel, but my gosh, pitching there was a nightmare.
So how are things going now with you in the music career and the writing? How are things going in Nashville?
Things are going great. Yeah, they're going great. My life's been on pause a bit. My wife and I we got 4 sons, and one of them has gotten sick with some autoimmune stuff. So I've not been in the studio for 6 months. It's been very trying time in our lives. But we're seeing signs of him improving. And it's definitely a hard reset right now because I think I took about a week off after I retired, and then I started writing songs every day in Nashville. So I feel like I'm experiencing maybe the lull that I perhaps should have after I retired from baseball, to really be at home with the family, say, what is this whole after baseball thing? But I'll go back to music and get back in the studio eventually, and just having a blast producing artists and writing for artists, and doing that kind of stuff. It just fills me up.
Well, I'll tell you something that should put a big smile on your face. All the time here at the ballpark, we play your song "Ballpark Kids," and to see the camera. And so on that, they built a new big. Wait till you see, the park doesn't look like when you played here. So they made it for it's big league, right? So they got the huge screen out there, and they pan around to the outfield where all the kids are and all the families are on the berm. And as they play Ballpark Kids, it shows all the kids and all the families here at the ballpark. It's been great seeing all the young kids, because a lot of these kids are coming to a Major League Baseball game for the first time. So we play your Ballpark Kids and we show all the kids around the ballpark. It's really special.
Oh, man. I love that. You guys shoot me a video of that or something. That would be cool to watch. Send it to my co-writers. Super fun song, man. I really love it that we got to write that song. That's awesome.
No, it is special. Well, you'll see it when you're here. We'll make sure we play it.
Yes.
Congratulations. It's such a huge honor, that you'll live forever with this organization. And as I look up now, not far from where I am right here, you see Reggie Jackson and Ricky Henderson and Dennis Eckersley, and you think of all the greats who have played in this organization and the Hall of Fame ceremony. I got to MC it last year. It's very emotional. If you can get Jose Canseco to be emotional, it tells you what it means. So I'm just going to get ready. It's going to be the speech. There's going to be tears. It's going to be big for your family and for your kids to really remember how great Dad was on the baseball field. They're going to get a chance to see that. So congratulations.
Wow.
and going in with your two brothers. I know it's going to mean a lot. So thank you for your time. As always, we always appreciate it.
Yeah.
And can't wait to see you on that day. And congratulations.
Chris, thanks so much, man. Can't wait to be out there. We'll see you guys in a few short months.
The great Barry Zito right here on A's Cast Live. The more that we start talking about this, wow, it is going to be September 13th against the Reds.
Correct.
This is going to be an event. It is going to be spectacular. And it gets even better. Coming up next, Tim Hudson right here on A's Cast Live.
Get your group together and check out all our great hospitality spaces for bonding opportunities, events, or a fun outing of your friends and family. There are 20, 50, and 100-person indoor suites available for select games, as well as an 80-person open-air area with a shaded cover. Secure your group today at athletics.com/hospitality. Versatile infielder and outfielder Max Schumann appeared on A's Cast Live with Towny to talk about embracing his role as a super utility player for Mark Kotze.
Just going out there and being athletic in whatever position they decide to play me in that day, or whether it's off the bench, just go and be an athlete. I think that it translates so well whether you're in the batter's box or playing whatever position on the field. I mean, it doesn't matter. I think the more athletic you can be and getting into an athletic position, the more consistent you'll be overall.
You can watch the full interview at youtube.com/athletics or listen at athletics.com/A'sCast. For just $25, fans can sit in the general admission outfield grass for all regular season home games. Tickets for that day's game will open up daily at 9 a.m. for purchase at athletics.com/lawn. Sign up to receive A's alerts to receive a text the first morning of each home series as a reminder. For more information, visit athletics.com/lawn.
Unlock offers and receive exclusive in-game features by downloading the MLB Ballpark app for iPhone and Android today. Plus, get the latest information on game time, schedules, and more.
A's top prospect Nick Kurtz shared the thrilling details of receiving the call about his MLB debut from Fran Riordan on A's Cast Live of Towny in West Sacramento.
I don't know if shock's the right word. I mean, I knew it could happen. I've been playing well in AAA, but I didn't know the timing of it all was a little bit. I was like, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, yeah, oh my God, it actually happened. Like it's here.
Kind of woke you up and you're like, is this a dream?
Yeah.
I mean, talk about the story.
Yeah, no, like I was up that morning, but then I kind of was like dozing off back to sleep and stuff. And I hear my phone buzzing. It's Fran. I'm like, okay, that's.
You're listening to A's Cast Live. Here's Chris Townsend.
Tim Hudson. He was the SEC Player of the Year at the University of Auburn. He was an All-American. Drafted not once but twice by the A's. He's a four-time All-Star, World Series champion, a National League Comeback Player of the Year, and it was always believed if you had a big game, Steve Sachs, you wanted the ball in Tim Hudson's hands because that was the kind of guy you thought about the stuff, but the makeup, the player, the guy, you wanted the ball in his hands when you needed it most.
Yeah, a lot of guys have stuff. A lot of guys have good stuff. Not a lot of guys have the makeup. Not a lot of guys can be that what you call a bulldog as a starter. You have to have a certain makeup to be a starter, and you have to have a certain makeup to be a closer. Kind of two different things. And he had it in spades. Boy, this guy was tough. Big time game pitcher. And I think that'll be his legacy.
He's in the Braves Hall of Fame. He's now in the A's Hall of Fame. 222 wins. Remember, he had Tommy John surgery in Atlanta, so that number could have been higher. His WAR?
57.9.
60. We look at 60 as you should be in. He's at what?
57.9.
He is a candidate. Maybe as time goes on, and the pitchers behind him won't even come close to his numbers. A lot like when we talk about Dave Stewart or Bob Welch or a lot of players, Kurt Schilling, a lot of players of this era. 222 wins and almost 60 WAR. You read it. We need to reevaluate Tim Hudson as a baseball Hall of Famer, Cooperstown, but he is now an A's Hall of Famer, and you can just see the bond that these guys had. It's so special. We have talked to Mark Mulder. We've talked to Barry Zito. Here is Tim Hudson, new A's Hall of Famer. It is an honor to have Tim Hudson back here on A's Cast Live, but it's different. We're just not talking about his career, and we're just not talking about baseball. And it's now talking about being an A's Hall of Famer and being a part of this organization for eternity. Congratulations, my friend. It is a big honor. And how does that feel to be called an A's Hall of Famer, an Athletics Hall of Famer?
Chris, I appreciate it. You know what? It's truly an honor. Obviously, this is such a storied organization, and look at all the names that have come through this organization that have been some of the greats, and just to be able to be mentioned in that same breath it's truly an honor, and I'm very blessed and grateful for that.
Yeah, I'm sitting here off to my left where we are in Sacramento at the ballpark in West Sacramento. I see Reggie Jackson, Ricky Henderson, Raleigh Faint, like all the Hall. I mean, you're going to be in this crew, and it's rightfully so, because when you look back, just talk about your career and what it meant when you first came up. I remember that outing against the Padres. Your first win was against the Dodgers. I believe you were like 11-2 as a rookie. I mean, you fit right in, and the A's and you, it was a great match.
Yeah, I was very lucky and blessed to be able to start my career with Oakland. It was an organization that was ready to build something from within the organization, and there was a lot of opportunities for us young players. And you know what, it's my path, coming through Oakland was something that I'll never trade. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I mean, we carved out so many great relationships and friendships in the Bay Area, and just those memories from those early 2000 teams in Oakland, and have an opportunity to establish myself as a major leaguer. Billy and Billy Bean and the organization, I mean, they gave me a chance to, to prove to them and to myself that I could be a Major League Baseball pitcher. And, I'm grateful for that. It's such a storied organization. Like I said, you mentioned, Raleigh Fingers and Ricky Henderson and Dave Stewart and just, all the greats that have come through Oakland. To be able to be mentioned in that same breath is, it's kind of strange, because early in my career, I remember seeing videos and highlight clips of all those guys thinking, man, look at those studs, they're all awesome. And now, hopefully some of these young players and, with the A's can see, some goofy highlight reels of me, Zito and Mulder, and, hopefully think the same thing about us.
Well, a lot of people forget you were drafted twice by the Athletics. So it's like that they definitely wanted to get you in this organization. Just talk about when you first come up, it's a young group and you start to realize we got a lot of talent here. So there's no Mulder yet. There's no Zito, but here you got Jason Giambi. You got some young guy. You got Miguel Tejada is going to you had some really young talent that you guys realized there's something special here.
Yeah, I think, in 98 and 99, things started kind of trending towards that youth movement for the organization. I know in my draft, they went really heavy with college pitching in my draft. And, thank the Lord I was able to come out and have some success early on in my minor league career and, move up through that organization. But, you had, Eric Chavez, Miguel Tejada, when I was coming through the minor leagues, Ramon Hernandez was my catcher, through the minor leagues. You look back with Mark Ellis. I mean, it's just some homegrown players that, that the A's really invested in, both a lot of time and a lot of energy to try to develop these young players. And, I just think, I'm so thankful that I did get drafted by Oakland because, they were an organization that needed to build within that minor league system and was going to, they wasn't afraid to give us young guys a chance to come up and be major leaguers early in our career. And, in 99, when I got called up, it was, Ramon Hernandez hadn't gotten called up yet, but he was pretty soon after that. There was a young pitcher named Chad Harville, who was my roommate coming up through the minor leagues, that he got called up right after I did. And then, that next draft was Mulder had already gotten drafted, but then Zito got drafted that June. So, and I think within a year, all three of us was in the big leagues. So it was, what a great opportunity for young players to come up in this organization and to have a chance to establish themselves. And, I think with me, Zito, and Mulder, it was, we all three really pushed each other. And I really don't think that any of us would have had the kind of career that we had if we hadn't been on those teams together early in our careers, because I think we just pushed each other and we got the best out of what we could get.
Well, and having talked to both of them already, you were already established, right? Even though you were still young, they looked at you as the established guy. Just talk to what it was like. What do you remember when they were getting called up? What do you remember?
Well, when I was in AAA, I was actually in AAA with Mark. He had gotten drafted that June, and he started his minor league career in AAA. So I remember when I got called up to AAA, he had already been there and was doing really well in Vancouver at the time. And it was one of those things where, I was a 6th-round draft pick. I didn't have a whole lot of money invested in me, so it was almost one of those things where I don't know if they really, thought that I was going to be a big prospect when I first got drafted, but I kind of, established myself as a prospect throughout those, that season and a half in the minors. And, I ended up getting called up that June when Mulder was in AAA. And honestly, I didn't really, there was, in my mind, there was probably 2 or 3 guys ahead of me in that pecking order in that AAA staff, that I thought probably would have gotten called up before me, but I was able to just go out there and pitch and kind of, I don't know if I forced their hand to call me up, but, I was able to pitch good enough that they felt like I could handle it. And, once I got called up and I got to, I made my debut in San Diego, it was just one of those things where I was like, all right, this is it. All the hard work that I put in, hopefully it can it's going to pay off up here. And I just pitched every game is honestly to not get sent down. I just want every game was like, okay, this pitch good enough to not get sent down, pitch good enough to not get sent down. And, at the end of that season, I think I was 11-2 with, a pretty good ERA. So it worked out for me pretty good. And then, and then I think the next season, I think Mulder, I think he may have gotten called up in September in '99. I'm trying to remember the timing of it, but it wasn't long after that he was up there with us. And then Zito, he was up there pretty soon that next season as well. So it was it was one of those things where even though I'd been up for majority of one season, I was able to pitch good enough that I felt like the organization had faith in me and could lean on me as, a rotation piece. And then, obviously with Zito and Mulder coming up, the future was pretty bright. I don't know that we quite realized how good we were going to be at the time, but, I knew that there was a ton of talent from those two guys as well.
Well, and you guys were very close. Even Mark Mulder said your wife, Kim, is like a sister to him. Like what you guys mean to each other. So there's that bond, not only where you pushed each other as the big three, but there was that bond off that is still today like brothers. And the fact that you guys are all going in together, it's very, very special. It's got to feel unbelievable for what you guys accomplished. And you'll now go into the A's Hall of Fame together.
Yeah. You know what? Honestly, I think it would be kind of strange if we didn't get an honor like this all together at the same time. I think we were all pretty much, if you mentioned one, you obviously you've mentioned the other two. And I think and I love that. I love the fact that we were kind of linked into that group together. And, there's a lot of comparisons, us three, to, a lot of the great pitching staffs that Atlanta Braves had back in the day. And me being from the South and being a Braves fan growing up, I knew that was a pretty big deal to be compared to those three guys. And, and I really do think that there was a moment where the three of us, I think we could have matched up with anybody almost in the history of the game in a rotation because, I felt like at any moment Zito was going to go out there and throw a no-hitter or Mulder was going to go out there and throw a no-hitter. They were going to get a ton of swings and misses. And, I felt like it was a pretty special, run of 3 or 4 years that we all three had together. And, I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was so much fun to be a part of, and I was a better pitcher for it, for sure.
Yeah, the fact that, you grew up around, it was Maddox, Glavine, and Smoltz. All three obviously have a plaque in Cooperstown. They're three of the greatest pitchers of all time. And when they were comparing you guys to that, for a lot of people in California, the Superstation, TBS, they watch games, but you lived it. You knew exactly what that was.
Yeah, it was a pretty big. Those guys were studs. They went out there and they did it. But I think the one thing that makes it pretty special for us, us three, is we did it from the time we got to the big leagues. We really didn't have that learning curve early in our career. I won 20 games pretty early on in my career. Those guys were winning 20 games and winning Cy Youngs within their first few years in the big leagues. There was a time where, Maddox and Smoltz and Glavine, they struggled early in their career. They had a moment where they had to try to figure it out a little bit. And so I think I can't say that we have the upper hand on those three in a lot of areas, but in that area, I think we beat them early in our careers.
Yeah, I was mentioning this to Mulder. It's amazing how where baseball is now, where you have all of these executives, whether it's guys or GMs or they're, president of baseball operations or their assistant general managers, soon to be GMs, where they all grew up in that era watching you guys, watching the A's. Then the book comes out, then the movie comes out. And when all these guys are going to Ivy League schools and all they were inspired not to go in finance, they were inspired they wanted to be like Billy Beane. They wanted to, your generation, that time in baseball where there was the view of that disparity of what the Yankees and the Red Sox were, and here are the A's, and the A's are competing against them, and then the book and the movie. Do you ever think about that era that you played in, meant a lot in baseball history, and it has inspired the future generation of the people that work in all of our front offices.
It really did. It was a pretty big step in that area of analytics within the game. I think at the time, I don't think we quite realized, what was going on behind the scenes and the conversations that was going on behind the scenes. And I think a lot of it honestly had to do with the fact that, we were a smaller market club. We couldn't go out there and spend big money on big free agents and the big pitcher that was a free agent or the big hitter that was a free agent. So, what Billy and the guys did, I mean, they were able to think outside the box and go out there and try to create offense and the best team they could with some things that didn't cost a lot of money. And, I think a lot of that, could be obviously our pitching was really young and our pitching was pretty good at that time. So, I think when that you have a foundation of some young pitchers that are going to be around for a while, maybe you can do some things that are a little, that maybe go against the grain a little bit from what a lot of organizations may do. And, I give Billy and those guys a lot of credit, man. They went out there and they did some things that a lot of people questioned at that time. Looking back on it now, and it really wasn't that big of a deal compared to the things that are going on now analytically. I think the analytics have really, taken the game by storm, and good or bad, I think there's a great opportunity for the game to benefit from both the new school analytics and the old school thinking a little bit. I don't think there's one way absolute to be able to do it to have success, and I think needs to be a marriage of the two for the best teams to be put out on the field. And I think a lot of organizations are realizing that now is, you can't be all analytic and you can't be all old school. I think there's a little bit of, common sense that goes into both sides. And I think if you can do that, that's going to be a winner out there on that field.
And the right personalities, the right guys in the clubhouse. And there just seemed to, when I would go in there years ago, and you just say like the group, it was the group that Billy would bring into that Oakland A's clubhouse was always known as a great group. You need to be the right kind of guy to fit in. And the cast and characters, you had some unbelievable guys in that clubhouse, but it just all fit, and you guys were all so tight.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's the one thing that teams and GMs, you can't put a dollar value on a team's camaraderie and a team's chemistry that you have in that clubhouse. We've seen so many great teams on paper go out there and lose 80 or 100 games just because they can't win together. We were a team that, we loved hanging out together. I mean, it was like a daggum fraternity in there most of the time. I think back on some of the things that we did and we had so much fun. It's kind of, I kind of scratch my head and think, man, I don't know if that would really fly nowadays. But it was, thank God there wasn't cell phones and all kind of stuff, back then. But it was just, what, man, we enjoyed, each other. We enjoyed going and hanging out away from the field and going to team dinners. And I think that really helped out with the kind of chemistry that we had on the field. And I really think that it helped us want to win even more together out there on the field because we had such a good bond and that brotherly, relationship off the field. I think that translates over to that baseball field.
Well, you always remember with great memories that last start in Oakland, you against Zito, you were with the Giants at the time. Well, you always remember that with great memories because the fans went absolutely nuts.
Yeah, it was awesome. That was the first time I had actually been to Oakland since I had gotten traded. I had never gone back and played a game in Oakland at the Coliseum until that last series with the Giants. And you know what? It was so much fun. We looked like two old, washed up prize fighters going out there against each other. I mean,
it was great, though. It was great.
The play on the field wasn't very good, but man, it was. I tell you what, I loved every minute of it. The fans were awesome. A lot of the young kids. A lot of the young kids probably had no clue who we were out there on the field, but I know their moms and dads were probably, they probably knew exactly what was going on.
Well, let's end on this because you and I, the cycle of life, you and I are in the same boat. We're empty nesters now. Kids are off to college. So what's Tim Hudson doing these days? Let the fans know what's going on. I know you're not coaching anymore, not at Auburn or not in high school. What do you got going on?
Well, now, besides trying to keep my dog barking that everybody's walking about, I'm actually really retired now, believe it or not. It was, after I retired from playing, I had a few years where I hung out with my family and coached Little League Baseball, and then had the opportunity to coach at Auburn for a few years. And I loved every minute coaching, at that level of baseball. And unfortunately, the timing of it wasn't great. It was my son's freshman, sophomore, and junior year in high school. And those 3 years, I just really didn't get to spend a lot of time with him. So his senior season, I had a chance to coach his baseball team his senior year. And honestly, it was one of my more favorite times of baseball, being able to coach him, knowing that, it was probably going to be his last year playing baseball, and maybe my last year coaching. I didn't know. So that was pretty exciting. And that was in 2023. So since then, I've been out of the house and trying to figure out exactly what this next, this next chapter in life is for me and Kim. All three of the kids are in college. Cade's going into his junior year at Auburn. Tess, my middle daughter, is going into her senior year. Kennedy has graduated from Auburn, and she's in Nashville going to Belmont. She's going to be an occupational therapist. So, things, life happens fast. It really does. And, so far so good. Kim hasn't kicked me out of the house, so we're I'm holding strong on that end. So, but being empty nester is definitely different. It's shifting gears. I loved every minute of every chapter that I had throughout my playing career, and this post playing career has been pretty awesome as well. I've been very blessed and truly grateful for all the blessings that I've had.
Well, you're World Series champion, the All-Star games and everything, but I think of two things. You were always known as the guy as a big game pitcher. Everybody wanted the ball in your hands. That's a great thing for somebody's career to be remembered as. And now you're an athletics Hall of Famer. So for forever, you will be in this franchise's Hall of Fame with the greats of the greats. I'm looking at all these names, some of the greatest players to have ever played in the game, whether it was the guys in Philadelphia, the players in Oakland, and going forward into Las Vegas. You will always be a part of that. So congratulations. It's going to be a great ceremony that's going to happen in September. We can't wait to see you, but congratulations on the Hall of Fame announcement.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. And thanks to all the A's fans out there. Love you guys.
Huddy, we'll see you in September with the family. You be well.
Awesome. Thank you.
This is awesome. Every player's dream to get a bobblehead.
Fastball on fire. Probably one of the coolest things you can put on the bobblehead.
An exploding ball. He does throw 104, so that makes sense.
A little bit of love for the baby facial hair on the chin.
Oh, thought that was dirt on his chin, but it looks like they intentionally put hair there.
This has been a presentation